What's up, guys? I'm GamerMD83, and this is the second episode of the Video Game Overload, so let's get started. First, we're going to start off with Wolfenstein the New Order. This game was developed by Machine Games, and it was published by Bethesda Softworks. The platforms are PC, PS3, PS4, Xbox 360, and Xbox One. And the release date is sometime in the holidays, so maybe November or December of this year. I've never played a Wolfenstein game. It's never really been my style of game. I've seen a lot of videos on the older Wolfensteins. I mean, I know that Wolfenstein is a huge game. I believe Wolfenstein was like one of the first-person shooters and stuff like that. So since I'm not big on first-person shooters, I just never really looked into Wolfenstein. But when I heard that Bethesda was publishing this game, I had to at least look it up. And to be honest, it looks pretty awesome. It's a single-player first-person shooter, and it's the 9th installment in the Wolfenstein series. It's a story-driven action-adventure. And there's actually an element of choice, which is pretty interesting. They showed this off in one of the E3 demos. They did show off a new trailer and demo at E3, so it looks pretty cool. But I was listening to one of the developers talk about the game. He says that it's a very challenging game, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be a pretty awesome game, especially for people that are used to this type of genre, first-person shooters. So the idea behind this Wolfenstein installment is that the Nazis have taken over. So it's kind of like an alternate history. What if the Nazis had won World War II? But aside from it being an alternate history, it's also a reimagined world. The theme is retro sci-fi. If you've seen anything on Wolfenstein, you know that there are mechs, not only bipedal mechs, but also like a dog. It's like this big, huge mech dog that looks insane. In the demo, it shows you driving, I think, in London. You could see swastikas all over the place. You could see the Nazi flag everywhere. The series protagonist returns. His name is William B.J. Blazkowicz. He's been in a coma for a few years. This is almost always the way that developers make it so that a game in a series is playable to most people, even though they haven't played the previous games. They'll make the main character have like some kind of amnesia, especially if it's a returning protagonist, some kind of amnesia so that you don't have to play the previous games, especially in this case where the games are so old. It's very doubtful that somebody would actually go back and play all 8 Wolfenstein before they play this new installment. The protagonist could be learning about the world and everything that's going on along with the player, so nobody's ahead of anybody. You're all starting with a blank slate. So the developers are saying that you don't have to play any of the previous Wolfenstein games, which is a plus because it's been such a long time since a Wolfenstein game has come out. This is a good comeback for the series. So the game is obviously set in Europe, and it will involve you infiltrating Nazi bases, taking over some of their high-tech weapons. So since this is like a retro sci-fi, you will see crazy types of weapons, not only weapons that existed during this era, but I think it takes place in like 1960 or something like that. But you will be seeing these sci-fi type of machinery and weapons. With the new weapons, you also get upgrades, so you get to change your weapon the way that you want to make it, so that you could approach fights in a different way. You choose how you fight depending on the upgrades that you put on your weapons and all that. They were talking about an improved cover system from the older games. One thing that you could tell by seeing the demo is that it's intense. It's not just like you could stay in cover. You have to be moving. Like, you can't just stay in cover. You gotta be in cover, move, because the AIs, the guys that are fighting you, will take you out of cover. Like, that's what they're programmed to do. And that's what they kept on saying. You gotta keep moving. And I really like this system that I've never seen done before in something very simple, a machine gun where you jump on the machine gun, kind of like a troika. Usually when you get on one of those things, you can't move. You're completely exposed and everybody's shooting at you, but you just have to be fast enough to aim at those guys. But in this one, you could actually like move like this and like take cover and, you know, dodge the bullets. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I don't know why they haven't done that in the past, or at least in other games that I have played. I haven't seen that. But they did say that even though it is a very challenging game when it comes to the combat, they said that it's very fair. So they said if you die, it was your fault. It's that type of combat where you have to be careful and you have to be strategical in what you do. The health system, they were saying that they're trying to merge modern day health systems with the old school health systems. Your health doesn't regenerate until you're less than 20%. So you start off with 100% health and 100% shields. If you go lower than 20%, it'll start regenerating. So let's say you have 5% health, it'll regenerate slowly until you get to 20% health, and then that's it. You won't regenerate after 20%. So you have to get like little med kits and stuff like that afterwards. So they said that you always have a fighting chance. It's not like you have 5% health and you're screwed. You know, it's like, oh god, what if I can't find a med kit? I'm so dead. One thing that people were asking a lot is if you will be able to jump into a mech, one of those fighting mechs. He said that you will be able to use a war machine, a type of war machine. So whether that's a mech or something different, I don't know, but it sounds like you will be able to jump into some kind of mech. Hopefully that would be so cool. I love mechs. So again, this is a reimagining. It's not based off of history. They're sticking more to the series than they are to the actual history. Next up is Saints Row 4, developed by Volition and published by Deep Silver. The platforms are PS3, PC, and Xbox 360. The release date is August 20th in North America. This is an action-adventure open-world game. If you've ever played a Saints Row game, you know exactly what you're in for, but this one is just taking it up a notch when it comes to the craziness. I've never played a Saints Row game. I've always wanted to, but the whole, like, taking it completely to the goofiness set level, just kind of like, it kind of turned me off. I'm more of a GTA type of person. GTA and Saints Row are very similar, but Saints Row is more, it's just more wacky. I mean, they do it on purpose. It's exactly what Saints Row is about. And I love that they do it on purpose, where they're just like, if you want to play a goofy game, this is it. And this game, Saints Row 4, is only taking it, like I said, to the next level. So pretty much the plot, without going into spoilers, is what has been revealed already, is that the leader of the 3rd Street Saints, which is you, the protagonist, has become the president of the United States. It takes place a few years after Saints Row the 3rd, in the same city it did in Saints Row the 3rd, Steelport, but the city has been redesigned to be a retro futuristic dystopia. What? This is the first thing that I noticed when I was reading about Saints Row 4. Aliens attack. petty little gangs. This time is full on alien invasion. Pretty much what happens is that the Saints and the president get abducted by these aliens, which are called the Zin, and then you get transported back to a virtual steel port, and you now have like superpowers. to fight this alien invasion. There are some returning characters from previous games, including Kinsey Kensington, Benjamin King, and Pierce Washington, and then there's others. There was a slight confusion with Saints Row the Third and a DLC that was going to be coming out. It was called Saints Row the Third: Enter the Dominatrix. This was a DLC that was going to take place directly after Saints Row the Third. They kept on pushing it back, and they just wouldn't release it, and people were like, what's going on here? Pretty much what this DLC was going to be about was this alien warlord called Zinyak that he's been keeping a close eye on Earth, its natural resources, and its females. After we knew all this, the developers and the publisher announced that this was going to be a full-on game, that it was going to be Saints Row 4 instead of the DLC. But now they're affirming that Enter the Dominatrix is actually going to be a DLC for Saints Row 4. Oops. For those of you that have played Saints Row in the past, you know that the publishers of Saints Row was THQ. So this is the first time that Deep Silver is going to be publishing a Saints Row game. The reason why THQ isn't publishing this anymore is because it unfortunately went bankrupt early this year, I believe, which was a bummer, but Deep Silver does say that they do have plans on publishing more Saints Row games. Saints Row 4 was actually going to be banned in Australia because of... But after it went through an appeal, they decided not to ban the game, and instead they edited the game for Australia. They took out like specific missions and stuff like that, and now they just gave it a rating of MA 15+. So yeah, Saints Row 4, freaking aliens attack. That sold it for me. And lastly, we talk about Beyond Two Souls. Developed by Quantic Dream, published by Sony. For the platforms, this is a PS3 exclusive, and the release date is October 8th for North America. This is an interactive drama action adventure. It's a single player only, third-person view. Quantic Dream developed Heavy Rain. Heavy Rain is QTE heavy. That's pretty much what the combat system is. It's QTEs only. That's how the combat was going to be for Beyond Two Souls, but they actually changed it, and it's no longer QTEs. Now it's bullet time. It's that slow motion. You see it in Max Payne. You see it in Red Dead Redemption. Everything slows down, and you get to analyze the scene, the screen for a second just to make your move. Instead of getting a moment to react to buttons, you're reacting to the analog sticks now. So left, right, up, down. But it's still challenging because in that slow motion part, you really have to see which way you're gonna get hit. And if you miscalculate, you're gonna get whacked. So it's pretty much just as challenging because you still have to be focusing and you have to have pretty good reflexes, but they just remove that whole aspect of, I don't know the controls, you know, it's more just like, you know, you just gotta react this time. The PS Move will not be compatible with Beyond Two Souls like it was for Heavy Rain. One thing that PlayStation really focuses on their games is motion capture, and I've always found that super interesting. Pretty much the voice actors aren't just in a booth voice acting. They're on a set, dressed up almost like clowns. They've like Speedos and they've got like little lights all over them. And they're actually acting the scenes out with their with whoever they're doing the scene with. I've always found that absolutely amazing. I would love to be able to do something like that one day because it's just so cool to me. I think all video games should be done in that way. And that's exactly what they're doing with Beyond Two Souls. It's starring Ellen Page and Willem Dafoe. Ellen Page is playing the protagonist. Her name is Jodie Holmes. What we saw back in 2012 made me think it was a different type of game. I never thought it was going to be what it is now, like what they're showing now, what they showed in E3. It's just like, oh my god, it's a little bit different. Like, it still has the aspects that we saw in 2012, which are this like supernatural type of psychological thriller. It still has that, but they're putting it, you get recruited to a military school, you know, you're on missions and stuff like that. And I didn't know that that was an aspect of the game. But one of my favorite things about this game is that supernatural aspect to it. Without seeing the gameplay, you would never know that aspect to it, that aspect of life after death. Pretty much there's this entity known as Aiden. It has been tied to Jodie, the main character, ever since she was a little kid, like almost forever. So this game spans a time period of 15 years, since she was 8 years old till she's 23 years old. She's the only one that could communicate with Aiden, and not just verbally, but she has these superpowers, like these supernatural powers, because of this connection that she has with Aiden. We know that the character that Willem Dafoe plays, he is a scientist and kind of like a father figure to Jodie. He does tests on her because of her abilities and all this stuff. And I think that's why she gets recruited to the military, because of her abilities. I think the military probably like, we could use her. Some of the abilities that she could use, she could transmit Aiden through like material objects. So if you're, let's say you're standing outside of a door, a house, a locked door, Aiden could go through that door and you could be seeing what's inside. You could be in an area and Aiden could go ahead of you to scan the area to see if there's any threats or whatever. But you can only get so far because Aiden and Jodie are tethered. So there is a distance limit. I believe there's different color orbs that you could see on people. Depending on the color of the orb is what you could do. If you see yellow orbs, you could possess the person. Or if you see red orbs, you could choke the person with Aiden. I believe there's blue orbs as well. You could blast objects with Aiden. Aiden could cause Jodie to have visions. So when she needs to see what happened or something like that, Aiden could give her visions of like what happened in a specific situation or something like that. Your actions influence the story. There are some puzzle aspects to the story. It's a very story and character driven game. So it's more about what is going on to Jodie. It's more about what's going on around her. It's not so much about the action sequences and like guns and different types of guns and all that. Ellen Page says that the script is about 2,000 pages long. And this is kind of a sad note, but the composer was the same composer of Heavy Rain. His name was Norman Corbeil. I might be butchering his name. I apologize. I'll put it on the screen. He was composing the game, but he unfortunately passed away from cancer in January of this year. The composer that took over was Lorne Balfe. I'm probably butchering his name as well. He composed Assassin's Creed 3. So yeah, that was Beyond Two Souls. It looks amazing. I can't wait to see how that works out. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the overload. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you think about the games that I talked about. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next overload.